Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for another episode of Fuck, Marry,
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the FMK podcast. I'm your host, Devika.
And I'm your host, Britt.
Today is Britt's episode. So, Britt, go ahead and take it away.
All right. I think you should take it away. You're holding your microphone raw dog with no stand. And I really just want you to do a comedy set.
Because this thing just doesn't.
I can't hear
you. This thing just keeps falling over.
Oh, God. She's holding the mic like she's ready to perform a show.
I got my one-woman act tonight going right after you.
No. Okay. Anyway, thanks for coming today. I'm going to stop explaining the game on our episodes just because I feel like our listeners are going to get tired of hearing the spiel. We will put actually in our show description that is how we do the game, Fuck, Marry, Kill. So, first of all, let's get down to business. What are you drinking today?
So I've mixed it up today. Ooh. I'm finally not drinking an Alentejo wine. I am doing a French wine. This is it right here.
What does it say?
It actually got pretty decent ratings too. So it's a Camille Sally. I'm probably butchering that because
French.
I can't. I always butcher French. And it's from Jurançon-Sec, which is a place in France.
Whatever you say.
And it's pretty good. It's nice. Okay. And these glasses, by the way, I really am happy about this. It's not a wine glass. They're like these cute little crystal cocktail glasses that my buddy Todd got me for my birthday this year. And I love drinking cocktails out of it. And I love drinking champagne out of it because I feel so 1920s,
yeah,
you know?
Super Art Deco looking.
Yeah, totally. Love these.
Nice.
How about you? What are you drinking?
I'm actually drinking a red wine today because I found my wine filter so I can drink it without getting a headache, which is really nice.
Ooh, sweet.
This is Marque de Caceres. It's, I don't know if it's a good wine or if it's crappy wine. And here's why. It was a gift from a boy that I was dating, and he's kind of a shithead. Ooh. So the wine's good. The wine's good. We got rid of the boy and kept the wine. Anyway, nice. I also have a gold rimmed.
Oh my gosh, you got the gold top. Yeah.
Matchy, except yours is kind of cool.
Love that.
Yeah. But I did want to tell you about this wine filter that I got because I don't know if a lot of people suffer from the red wine headaches, but I found a filter. It's on Amazon. It's called Uline. It looks like this. It's dripping.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And you just set it on top of your wine glass and pour the wine in the top. And it filters. There's a little filter inside, and it gets rid of all the like sulfates and bullshit that American people put in the wine. And I don't get headaches. And funny enough, it's a company out of the Merchandise Mart in Chicago.
Oh, cool. Neat.
Yeah, I didn't even know.
Cool.
But maybe we can post it in the show notes in case anyone else is interested. Shameless plug.
Yeah, for sure.
They're not sponsoring us, but I like them.
They should.
Yeah. All right. My subject today is, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Evil doctors and nurses in history.
Ooh. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Okay.
They're pretty spicy and terrifying.
This is great. This is actually so perfect because of what I'm doing next too.
Okay. I'm always nervous we're going to do a super similar subject because we do not tell each other.
No, but this is actually, it's like perfect. It's so dissimilar in some ways and then similar in other ways. So it's great.
Okay. I tried to do just doctors or nurses, but then I found two really cool doctors going down that way. And then I found a nurse that I was like, I got to mix it.
Healthcare practitioners.
Yes. That's a good one. Yes. Why didn't I think of that? Yeah. Anyway, hilariously enough, it was kind of weird as I was doing my research. All of these people were born in December. So
interesting.
Ooh. Yeah. I don't know what's December. I'm going to look it up.
Isn't it Sagittarius?
Is it December?
I think so.
Astrological.
It's probably more than one, but
Sagittarius, you're correct. And Capricorn. Now that that's out of the way. My first evil practitioner is a nurse, actually. His name is Niels Högel. He's German. He was born in 1976 in West Germany. He grew up with a nurse father and a mother who was a paralegal. And they both sheltered him a lot as a kid. Like, they would not let him get exposed to anything, no violence, no nothing. So he was like, pretty squeezed in there. His grandfather was actually a nurse as well. He completed nursing training in 1997, and then he began working at the, oh God, I'm going to mess these up because they're all German, Sankt Wilhad Hospital. Sorry, everybody that speaks German.
Sounds about right to me.
Sure. And then he eventually moved to the cardiac surgery unit intensive care at the Oldenburg Clinic in Lower Saxony, Germany. So he moved to intensive care cardiac surgery. During his employment there, the hospital all of a sudden saw an unusual spike in resuscitations and also deaths. So the hospital administration there held a meeting to address the issues. Högel attended this meeting, didn't say a word, but it scared the crap out of him. So he took 3 weeks off after this because it spooked him so much. And these deaths and resuscitations during his 2 weeks off completely dropped, and no one put 2 and 2 together at the hospital. Nobody was like, oh, he's missing and now all of these deaths are stopping. Maybe we should, maybe it's him.
Investigate it a little bit.
So a year later, he was never fired, never anything. A year later, his boss finally confronted him after multiple patients inexplicably found themselves in a life-threatening condition. His boss then offered, this is crazy, he offered for him to resign or find another job within the hospital where he was not allowed to provide medical care to anyone.
That's so wild.
I know. So he, of course, took the resignation. He's like, no, I want to keep taking care of people. So he resigned and just moved to another place. And to even further how crazy this is, the hospital's director of nursing wrote him a glowing letter of recommendation to go somewhere else.
So it's probably because they just didn't want anyone investigating the hospital.
Yeah, something. No red flags, or I don't know. That's wild.
Insane.
But why not just
It's one thing to not report him to the police, but
yeah, and why not just write him a neutral letter, or I don't know.
Or just say, no, I'm not going to write you a letter of recommendation.
Something, yeah.
That's so bizarre.
Or else maybe there was just completely no communication between his boss and the
director.
Yeah, and maybe he was like, well, he's resigning. Can we just, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, he got a job just 25 miles away from this hospital that he had just resigned at, called the Delmenhorst Clinic. Sudden influx of fatalities happened once he got there. These were due to arrhythmia or decreases in blood pressure. His supervisors did nothing, but slowly gave him the nickname Resuscitation Rambo because, he would keep trying to resuscitate these people. Once he was arrested, it was reported that 73% of all the deaths at this Delmenhorst clinic happened on his watch. And he more than doubled the amount of deaths at the hospital alone.
Wow.
Yeah. So here's what.
So that's so wild to me because at first I was like, well, if a bunch of people passed, you would never think that a nurse would be capable of doing something like that because they want to help people. But if it's that staggering, the amount of,
yeah, it's wild how many people looked away. And there's a lot of stories. Niels' story is not
the only one
unique at all. So what was happening was he was injecting patients with drugs that would cause cardiac arrhythmia and severe blood pressure drops, and then resuscitating them so he would look like a hero. It was found that, what a piece of shit. He had injected 90 patients and only 60 had been successfully resuscitated by Högel. He was sentenced to life in prison of March of 2015, but investigations continued after that because those findings were just at Delmenhorst where he was working. Investigations continued after that life sentence, and it was discovered that he may have murdered over 300 people over the course of 15 years. And he admitted to injecting the drugs and trying to play hero, quote, out of boredom. So, yeah, because courts were only able to convict him of 85 murders. they exhumed a lot of the bodies that they suspected he was injecting or had injected and killed. But not all of them were they weren't able to prove everything because of, the bodies were too old or they couldn't pull enough DNA or whatever. But they were able to convict him of 85 murders out of all the ones he, may have done.
Yeah.
So because he had already had a prior life sentence for the Delmenhorst Clinic murders, and Germany does not allow for the death penalty, any further sentencing he received from these extra murders would not really alter his sentence. But
Sure.
he was on paper given another life sentence for the further homicides, this time without possibility of parole after 15 years, which he had received the first time.
Yeah.
And that is Nurse Niels Högel.
I mean, first of all, even just being convicted of 85, like when we talk about all of the serial killers that we've done and stuff like that, I mean, that's a really staggering number.
Yeah. Yeah.
And these are all like elderly patients who are so vulnerable and
it's
garbage.
Disgusting. And that was the most recent nurse I will tell you about. The other ones are a little bit older. So, Next up, Linda Burfield Hazzard, which is a hilarious last name for an evil, quote unquote, doctor.
Totally.
Oh, Linda. All right. So she was born Linda Laura Burfield before she got married in December of 1867. So we're in the 1800s. She was not technically a doctor. She did have a medical degree, but she ended up finding a loophole in the state of Washington. And the loophole grandfathered in some alternative medicine practitioners without degrees. So she was allowed to be a doctor, basically. Her claim to fame was in her nickname, which was the Starvation Doctor.
Oh, that's going to be brutal, isn't it?
Alternative medicine. So she studied her alternative medicine practices under an MD named Edward Hooker Dewey, who was a major proponent of fasting, which fasting is good for you, but not like she did. She developed her own method of fasting to con people with what she claimed was a panacea for basically any illness under the sun. Panacea means like a remedy that cures all diseases and prolongs your life indefinitely. I looked it up. I was like, indefinitely, are you sure? But anyway, her MO was that fasting would rid the body of toxins that caused imbalances, and the digestive system needed, quote, rest. So during her practice, she wrote 3 books. One was called Fasting for the Cure of Disease, another one, Diet in Disease and Systemic Cleansing. And then she sort of recycled her first book and revamped it a little and then changed the name and called it Scientific Fasting, the Ancient and Modern Key to Health.
Great.
She's a cheetah. Anyway, her business went like this. She created a sanitarium called Wilderness Heights, which sounds very nice, in Olalla, Washington. I think I'm pronouncing that right, Olalla. And she invited patients and fans of her work to live there and be cured under her fasting schedule. And patients would go for days, weeks, months, and she actually attracted quite a lot of people. Like, I guess her advertising was pretty good, and alternative medicine was sort of becoming a little bit popular at the time. So these people that came to her sanitarium would be fed tiny amounts of juices, like tiny amounts. And it would be like tomato juice, asparagus juice, a little bit of orange juice, but only sparingly. So she was able to keep going for a while because some of her patients actually survived and got out and would endorse her. So I think she kept getting by a certain people, like literally surviving and escaping. And they didn't know.
So wait, people like couldn't check in. So there weren't people like checking in and out.
Yeah. From what I understand, she would give you a schedule and say, well, you need to be here for so and so many months. And then maybe she extended or something. And like, I don't know. But she also was making them very weak. Very weak. So yeah, it was like a perfect storm of not being able to get out of there. These people that survived, escaped, and endorsed her didn't know that others had actually died under her care. Dozens had died under her care.
Already?
Yeah, because Hazzard would tell anyone that asked that these people just had undiagnosed illnesses like cancer or cirrhosis, and it had nothing to do with the starvation, complete starvation.
Oh, that's so messed
Yeah.
up.
Like, oh, it's something else. Yeah. So she eventually got caught, obviously. And here's how. A pair of wealthy British sisters named Claire and Dorothea, or she went by Dora Williamson, were huge believers in alternative medicine and noticed her ads for the Wilderness Heights in the newspaper. Dora had been complaining of swollen glands and rheumatic pains, and Claire had been told she had a dropped uterus. So the sanitarium was advertised like this beautiful land with like horses grazing and fresh vegetables and produce that she would get the juice from, and it just looked amazing and nice for rich people. But when they got there, they were just fed like a tiny amounts of broth from like canned tomatoes and canned vegetables, like the water from Ugh.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. So the only type of food that you do have is just chock full of preservatives and stuff.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Isn't that cute? Also, it gets way worse. They were given hour-long enemas in scalding hot baths.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. She sort of like retrofitted the bathtubs with basically canvas that was taut, because these people would faint during their treatments and couldn't hold themselves up, so they could drown, because it was horribly painful. They were getting burnt and like stuff shoved up their butt, which is...
Yeah, and they haven't eaten and how
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the heat and not eating it alone is like, I would pass out for sure. So anyway, the sisters did not tell their family where they went, because their family kind of foo-fooed all their alternative medicine interests, because they're like, oh, whatever, that's magic or whatever. It's not going to work. You need actual medicine or actual surgery or whatever. So that was not great because they couldn't be rescued.
Yeah.
But their childhood nurse, Margaret Conway, ended up getting a really strange cable that was sent to her. And I could not find anywhere what this cable said, but she said it was completely nonsensical. And it came from the Wilderness Heights where the girls were. And this scared Margaret. So she took it upon herself to go to Vancouver, and Linda sent her husband to meet her there.
Yeah.
Her husband, Samuel, was not a good guy either. He apparently had served jail time for bigamy after marrying Linda. So he was kind of a piece of shit too. So they met in Vancouver, and then Sam was the one that told Margaret there that Claire had died. He's like, oh yeah, Claire died. We'll see you later. So then Margaret was like, I'm going to see her. So she arrived in Washington to see Claire's body. And this was weird. Claire's body had been embalmed and was put on display at the Butterworth mortuary. But it was weird because her hair, her hands, and her facial shape all looked completely wrong. It did not look like Claire whatsoever. Later, she managed to also find Dora, the other sister, who was still alive. So Dora survived, but she only weighed 50 pounds, 50. And her sitting bones were 50. And her sitting bones were protruding so badly that Dora couldn't even sit.
Oh, no. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
That's so terrible.
And Margaret went on to discover that Linda had been appointed executor of Claire's estate, which was very large. They were wealthy.
Yeah.
And also had been appointed Dora's guardian. So Dora had signed her power of attorney over to Linda's husband, Samuel. So they basically were controlling Dora, and she couldn't do anything about it. Upon Margaret's arrival, Linda was just like wearing Claire's clothes and jewelry and sapphires around, like just in front of her. She knew Margaret was coming and was wearing all of Claire's shit.
Complete psychopath.
I know. Margaret was unable to get anything, like she couldn't do anything. She was just their childhood nurse and had no like power of attorney or anything, any fighting power. But she was finally able to get the girl's uncle, John, to come, but he literally had to pay $1,000 to get Dora off of their property and help her escape. And $1,000 back then, this was in the 1910s at this point, that would equal $32,877 today.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, he had to pay them off just to get his own niece back. So,
Oh my gosh.
Dr. Hazzard to the family claimed that the drugs that Claire had been administered during her childhood had caused her internal organs to shrink and caused cirrhosis of the liver. It had nothing to do with any of the fasting. It was just what you guys gave her as a child. And rumor has it that Hazzard had an in with that Butterworth mortuary that I mentioned before, where Claire was on display and it didn't even look like her. Rumor has it that she had actually switched Claire's body with a healthier looking one. So no one would know how starved and unhealthy Claire was at her time of death.
Wow.
Like, body swapped. This is a rumor. And
these women went in for rheumatism and like a dropped uterus?
Yeah, basically anything. I mean, they could just have headaches too much and they came and died because she was not feeding them at all. Later, it was found that several wealthy people had died under Hazzard's care, and she was able to inherit their money because probably they were just like losing their minds and would do anything. I'm sure they were not in their right mind when they were starved that bad and they were in so much pain that she could get them to do anything. One patient even shot himself while under her care as a result of the pain of starvation, because starvation is extreme pain. It's awful.
Yeah.
Hazzard was later found guilty of manslaughter, but she only served 2 years. 2 years.
Are you kidding?
No. She decided to use her own fasting methods while she was in jail to prove that it was safe and that she didn't do anything wrong. Yeah.
Bullshit.
Yeah. So Hazzard was in exchange for only getting 2 years. She was told she had to move to New Zealand. Like they're like, you're getting exiled and you're not allowed to practice here anymore. But in exchange for only serving 2 years. But in New Zealand, she was just pardoned by the governor where she went and just continued her treatment methods in New Zealand.
You're kidding.
Yes. Ironically, though, she died at the age of 70 as a result of her own treatment methods.
So did she like believe this too?
I don't know. Part of me wonders if she was trying to, maybe she got in trouble again in New Zealand and was trying to prove again.
Prove it. Yeah.
Or maybe she thought she had something to prove. I don't know. I'm sure she was some sort of narcissist that didn't think she was doing anything wrong, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows? But that is Linda Burfield Hazzard, your evil, quote unquote, doctor number 2.
That's messed up. Okay. Got it.
Third one. You might have heard of this guy. His name is Walter Freeman II. Walter Jackson Freeman was born in 1895, and he came from a long lineage of doctors. So he was an actual doctor. He studied at Yale for undergrad, and then studied neurology at the University of Pennsylvania Med School later. Then he got a PhD in neuropathy at George Washington University. So super smart guy.
Yeah.
In 1935, a new psychosurgery procedure was performed in Portugal, of all places, by, his name was Dr. Agus Moniz, and this was named a leucotomy, which took small parts of a person's frontal lobes in order to treat mental illness. So they would core out small pieces of the frontal lobes to cure like anxiety, depression, that kind of thing.
So it's like a smaller lobotomy kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. You're on the right track. Okay. So Moniz then became a mentor and idol to Walter. Walter then went on to modify this leucotomy procedure into what we now know as a lobotomy. So,
got it.
Lobotomies were meant to cure anxiety, insomnia, and depression. And Walter then became known as the father of lobotomy. But he was not known for just modifying this leucotomy into lobotomy. He was known for something a lot worse. First of all, Walter had no surgical training. None. He studied. He did not have surgical training. And
I think I have heard of this guy, by the way.
He's pretty well known. Yeah.
Yeah.
So at that time, he ended up teaming up with a surgeon who did have training named James Watts. By 1942, they had performed over 200 lobotomies, and they published results claiming is a keyword, that 63% of their patients had improved, 23% were unchanged, and 14% were worse. These lobotomies are not what we know as lobotomies, though they are drilling into the brain, but they were through the head. Just like it was an actual surgery where they went through skin and everything.
Yeah.
But the actual reason Walter earned this father of lobotomy nickname is because after his lobotomy surgery development, he came up with a faster, cheaper, and what he thought would be more effective way to do them, which is real icky. He actually wanted to invent a way for psychiatrists and not just surgeons to be able to perform them. This is because psychiatric hospitals usually didn't have enough or any operating rooms, surgeons, or anesthesia due to limited budgets. So I think his idea had good intentions at first, like to help people have more access to what they thought was curing mental illness. But also we don't know if he knew the results weren't actually what he was claiming they were and just wanted to be that guy.
Famous.
Yeah. So what he came up with was called the transorbital approach, which is basically what we know of lobotomies today. They're not performed today, by the way. Thank God. This is also known as the ice pick lobotomy. Yeah. Here's a trigger warning because I fucking hate eyeball stuff. I hate it. Don't tell me about any eyeball injuries. I won't be your friend. He would pick an ice pick looking instrument, and it was called an orbitoclast. But it was said like people ended up using ice picks. I don't know how true that is, but it was actually called an orbitoclast, the actual tool. They would put this instrument under the eyelid. Oh God, I can't. They would put it under the eyelid and against the top of the eye socket, and they would use a mallet to drive it in through the skull and into the brain. And this was not using anesthesia because that was his.
No.
Yeah, but it wasn't totally like wide awake. He used electroconvulsive therapy, which basically shocked a patient into a seizure and unconsciousness. So he was
cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So he was creating seizures in these people, which I'm sure that was painful as well. It was electroconvulsive therapy, which was shocking them. So it's not like it wasn't painless or anything or, humane. So this access to lobotomies, because they didn't know about mental health as well back then or anything, lobotomies thought this was the shit, or people thought lobotomies were the shit, became very popular. Freeman was really good about marketing them and advocating for them and, telling them it was so easy and it would cure everything, yada, yada, yada. He got to practice for 40 years. And he eventually personally performed about 4,000 lobotomies, despite the fact that he still, at this point, had no surgical training. People would...
What?
Yeah, he let loose, man. People would send their family members to receive this cure, despite a ton of physicians being like, no, don't do this. This is crazy. It's not doing anything. Like, he got so many people in the field that were against him, and he still was able to continue. Parents would send their kids as young as 4 to get a lobotomy.
No way.
And it was because these kids were just wild. There was nothing wrong with them. They were being kids. They had too much energy and the parents just didn't want to deal with it, or maybe thought like, my kid has too much energy. They definitely need a lobotomy. So, which is absolutely horrific. The lobotomies didn't really cure anything. They just incapacitated the patients, crippled some, created zombies, and killed a ton of people. Like, it was just willy-nilly drilling into your brain and hoping for the best. Because Walter claimed that a few actually worked, he got to continue hurting thousands. So his ego got the best of him because he was like revolutionized as the savior of a surgeon, even though he was not a surgeon. Around 490 patients died after their lobotomy. One patient died. This is a horrible story. One patient died because Freeman stopped for a photo during a lobotomy and accidentally penetrated the orbitoclast too deep into the patient's brain. How disgusting is that? Because he wanted
I mean, just like pure recklessness and carelessness for human life.
And you can tell he just wanted to be like, known for the famous. Yeah, I'll stop for a photo and kill this person. His final surgery was on a woman named Helen Mortensen. Oh, by the way, he did like famous people's lobotomies too.
Did he do like Rosemary Kennedy's?
Yep, that's one of the ones.
Yeah, okay.
Very much messed her up, and the family was embarrassed after
totally
that.
Messed her
completely hid it. His final surgery, though, was on a woman named Helen Mortensen. This was her third lobotomy. So she went back for more because the first two didn't work. Freeman was finally banned from performing lobotomies because she ended up dying of cerebral hemorrhage. She bled out. He was banned from performing lobotomies, but he was allowed to continue practicing medicine in California. And he died of cancer in May of 1972. And that is Walter Freeman, the father of lobotomy.
Wow.
I was right.
This is a really tough one.
I know.
By the way, have you seen Nurse Ratched? I haven't seen it, but I've seen the clips of it.
My friend Brandon.
It's too dark for me because I have like that whole thing with like insane asylums and everything. And like, I've seen like some of but they have a character like that in there, right? Isn't there like one of the characters who like, and it like shows it or something? Yeah.
Yeah. It's terrifying what they thought. Like mental health back then, they're just like,
all of it. Terrifying.
Drill it out. So I think
this is really hard.
It is hard.
This is hard.
I love torturing you,
Yeah.
But I think we won't go on the quantity of deaths because that would make it too easy. Just like, ranking them.
Yeah.
I think we'll go on sort of like the doctor's intentions type thing. And
honestly, though, Britt, I don't think it would change my answer.
Okay.
And the reason is I know that it probably should, right? Like, because the value of a life and like everything, but like the first dude, the nurse, he probably killed the most people, right? And also I just like the idea of taking advantage of elderly people who have just lived this whole life and you're just taking their last moments away from them.
First of all, it was like not just elderly people though.
Oh, it was like anybody in intensive care. It was like everybody,
the youngest
right?
person I think it said was 33 years old.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Like he stole that life away. But I didn't get as angry, like listening to his story as the other two. Like I got so angry. So I'm going to start with kill because the other two are just going to be really hard because this is like an all kill episode for sure, Okay. This is really tough. Okay. I'm going to walk you through my thought process. Yeah. So the alternative medicine doctor woman, her patients came to her out of their own free will to start. But then I think anything after that was not like under their will. Like they couldn't leave anytime they wanted.
Right.
The lobotomy patients also came by their own will, but a lot of them didn't, like those 4-year-old children and like a lot of the women, like even that woman who went back, like who knows if she really wanted to do it. You were basically at the mercy of what your husband wanted or your father wanted, right?
Yes. And also, sorry to interrupt, I forgot to mention that husbands would send their wives for just not obeying. So it was not all on their own free will. You're right.
Totally. I mean, even like Rosemary Kennedy, like her dad sent her, right? I mean, it was like so my gut reaction was to kill the woman who was starving everybody because like it just makes me so angry. These people who come and they just prey on people's vulnerabilities and then they rob them and they're doing this for financial gain. Also, like a lot of this like woo-woo medicine sometimes makes me like so angry because I think it puts a lot of people in harm's way. Yeah. But the lobotomy guy just sounds like such a scumbag and he never even got like really caught for it. He didn't even serve any time.
No, he got to continue to work.
Okay, I'm killing him. I'm killing the lobotomy guy. Okay. I'm fucking with yeah. All right. I'm fucking with the starvation chick and I'm marrying
Nurse Hero.
the nurse guy because he's also got life in prison. So like,
That's true. Yeah,
I just have to see him on like occasion, just stop by and say hi. So
yeah,
that's my answer.
okay. I'm very much well, needless to say, we always agree on everything, but I would also marry the nurse butthead that was a hero. He wasn't a hero. Only because some of his patients did live. Well, actually, a lot of the patients in all three of these did live. I would also marry Niels Högel because you're right. He did get his. He had to go to jail. He's not getting out. And I don't know. This is an all kill episode. Honestly, I can't even really justify any of my answers other than kill. But so we're just going to marry him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, both Linda and Walter's patients were basically tortured, but I think I have to kill Linda because that's slow, arduous, painful torture. Whereas lobotomies, you're incapacitated, but I don't know that they were in physical pain.
But they were in physical pain for the time that happened.
Absolutely. They were in physical pain for the surgery and whatever.
But then it ended. So I get what you're saying there.
But they were also like stuck in their own mind. Who knows? They could have been completely actively like thinking thoughts and they couldn't get them out.
Yeah.
But I've just read too much about starvation deaths and they're fucking miserable and they take a while sometimes because I think she was like keeping these people alive barely.
Yeah.
And one person shot themselves just to get away, just to get out of it. So I think I would kill her and fuck lobotomy guy.
Oof.
I know.
Those are some painful options.
It's an all kill, baby. It's an all
kill episode. Yeah. But listeners, if you want to tell us how you feel about this one, because I'd love to hear your opinions on it.
It's a toughie. I always try really hard.
That was a toughie. Yeah.
We need to do an episode that's like all marry. But that's boring.
Yeah, I know. But then we'd have to, that's like even hard. Then we have to kill one. We should do one episode that's a no kill episode just to push some positivity out there.
Yeah. Maybe it'll be a quickie because I don't want to bore people. We like the spicy stuff.
Yeah. We'll do a quickie. We'll do a no kill quickie, but we'll do it with like 4 options because otherwise it's kind of like, well, all right. Obviously what's going to happen in the last one?
Marry and kill.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, that was a good episode.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. Send us your suggestions, by the way, please.
Cheers.
Cheers.